Okay, well, as I was saying, so I know it's been a long break, and it's going to be another long break coming up, and I do want to talk a little bit about schedule at the end of when we wrap up, just in terms of so we're all clear, and Thursdays are getting hard, like they're kind of working, so maybe we can possibly think about another night at some point, but we'll talk about that at the end. So tonight we are into chapter 15. Now, just as a reminder, like these were the little notes from chapter 15. I don't ever erase anything, so that works out. But just kind of remembering that we've got this tension that's set in, and chapter 15 is going to help us that the church has finally decided is going to try and solve this tension. And the tension is there are the people who believe that if you're going to follow Jesus, you have to go through the law of Moses, meaning you have to be circumcised, you have to keep kosher, you have to do all the things, and then to follow Jesus, or you as Gentiles come into the faith and are come into covenant without doing all the hoop jumping and all the things. And this is the great tension, and this is the great debate that the church has. And the goal here, and this is what you'll see this throughout Paul a number of times, where he's saying, what Paul is really working at is not having two separate churches, because that's the potentiality here. Is this, like there's Sadducees and there's Pharisees and there's all these different sects of Judaism. Well, the potentiality is there could be really two different sects of Christianity. That those who were Jews and continue to follow Jesus, and then the Gentiles who come in, and so. But this is not. This is, and it's not just because he wants the church to be unified. It's because of how Paul and Peter understand what has happened. Because the way they understand what has happened is, again, many times Jesus says, "I come not to destroy the law, but to fulfill it." That this idea that this is Judaism that has continued on in the arrival of the Messiah. So it's not that the Jewish law was not valuable and was not necessary, but with the arrival of the Messiah, we've entered a new age. And so it's like, we graduated. We don't go to this, we don't go to this school over here anymore. We go over to this school over here, and this school over here has different rules and different things than the old school. So there's this way in which and so it's not it's not this notion that they just want to not be divided, but it's this notion that in order to accept what is going on, they have that. In order to accept Christ, it really is about accepting the Gentiles as well. Do you see what I'm saying? Like
where's the Father bringing us? Where's the Father bringing us? Even with Jesus,
right?
Where is he trying to
and right, and we're going to see that. Actually, you're absolutely right. Like we're going to see that in what's written tonight. That's where we're actually going to see like that language is going to play itself out, if we can ever get there. But basically, what we had is up until this tension strikes in the beginning of the chapter. They say, okay, we need to go sort this out. So Paul and Barnabas decide we need to go to Jerusalem and sort this out. And we're going to get everybody together, and whatever we decide, that's what we're going to do. Now it's not, notice they go to Jerusalem to be with Peter and be with James and be with the other disciples. But they're not like whatever Peter decides. They're going to say they're having this council to decide what's the way forward. And so they travel there. They go through. It's a little bit like a victory lap because they're traveling there, and every time they go there, they go to a new place. They're like, "Yay! Hey, it's Paul and Barnabas!" Hey, so they're kind of rock stars on the way there. And then they get to Jerusalem, and all of a sudden they're kind of slapped in the face with a cold fish, But some of the believers who belonged to the party of the Pharisees rose up and said, "It's necessary to circumcise them in order to keep the law of Moses." So already the tension, they just get to town, and already the tension, the AC cycling. and they just get to town, and all of a sudden it's they're already into it, and so this is where we picked up from last time. The apostles and the elders were gathered together to consider this matter. After there had been much debate. So they come to town and they start fighting about this thing. Like it's already like. So Peter stood up and said to them. So Peter is now going to inject himself into this and make a definitive statement about what he believes. Brothers, you know that in the early days God made a choice among you, and that by my mouth the Gentiles should hear the word of the gospel and believe. So who was that heard the word of the gospel and believed? Right, but any particular Gentiles? Who was it that Peter encountered? Remember his name?
No.
Cornelius.
Oh, yeah.
So this is like, it's just, he's not just referencing any old Gentiles. He's referencing the encounter with Cornelius, the big picnic, the vision of the picnic in the sky, coming down, eating all the things, like, and he getting that vision, going to Cornelius, meeting Cornelius, finding Cornelius to be more faithful than most of the other people that he's encountered. That whole to see them receiving the Holy Spirit, that whole encounter. So, it's another one of these things that it's the way the gospel comes at us from sideways and comes at us from the outside. That how is it that the most faithful guy, the guy that actually this whole argument of who is actually in the club and who's not in the club is going to hinge on who? A Roman centurion. The very people who have their boot on the neck of the Jewish people. The very person that they should hate the most is actually the guy that Peter is now referencing and saying, does this prove to you that this is the extent of God's grace, and that you're going to be healed by God's grace, we're going to be touched, but we're going to be brought together by God's grace, not by the law. And so
Faith.
You see,
His faith, it's because of his faith that the Holy Spirit came.
right.
So it was about the law. It was about,
Right, exactly.
The fourth getting cut off. It was about faith, as we say.
Right, yeah.
I think it's how God uses least of people that you would expect.
Right, yeah,
Yeah.
right, and that's kind of that we think it's kind of an inside job, and it's really this, from left field, it comes to us in a way that we, what's that?
To prove that his point, just purposely he's.
Right, to be as in many ways, to be as outlandish as possible in a way, like to be as impossible as possible. Yeah, that makes sense. Impossible as possible.
Yeah.
Keep going, Andy.
Here we go.
All right, so by my mouth the Gentiles could hear the word and believe. So that's Cornelius. And God, who knows the heart, bore witness to them by giving them the Holy Spirit, just as he did us. So he's making an equivalency between Cornelius, between the Gentiles, and between the apostles. And he made no distinction between us and them, and he cleansed their hearts by faith. So the purpose of the rituals of circumcision, bathing, the kosher laws was for cleansing. And so here he's saying their heart. So they were outward symbols of inward cleansing, is what the Jewish law has them as. So there's this way in which Jesus is saying the Holy Spirit has moved and they've been cleansed through their heart. So that the cleansing has happened. So that they're not it's the problem with Gentiles is that they're dirty kind of thing. They're unclean. And they're unclean. And so they're here he has them saying, no, they have actually been made clean. So he's hitting all the marks here about what the objections may be.
Now eat bacon.
Right, yeah, exactly. Yay! And that's how we know Jesus loves us. Now, therefore, why are you putting God to the test? By placing a yoke on the neck of the disciples that neither our fathers nor we have been able to bear. So there's this. So the yoke being the law. The thing is no one. He's referencing back to the entire history of Israel. They never kept the law. They never managed to pull it off. from the golden calf to the idolaters to just people living their daily lives. Like they just the law is strict and nobody's ever been able to pull it off. So you want to put a yoke on these people that we've never been able to do, and for what purpose? Is that because God hasn't asked them to take up that yoke? Like God asked us to take up that yoke, but God never asked them to take up this yoke. Clearly what God's asking them is to come into relationship and covenant. And so, but we believe that we will be saved through the grace of the Lord Jesus Christ, just as they will. This is one of the first references to grace that we get in the New Testament. And so this is an active thing. And so grace is God's action, not our action. So but it's not even God's action, like God's going to go do this, do this special thing. Grace is the outpouring of the work of God. Like one of the things that we think about it like this, like if you're trying to grow a tomato plant, okay, you plant the seed, you put it in good soil, you water it, you make sure it gets sun, you create the conditions around it. But you don't grow a tomato plant. The tomato plant has within it the elements that God grows the tomato plant, and it is God's operation that creates in the ordered universe that creates tomatoes and the tomato plant. Now you can do all kinds of things. We can mess with its DNA. We have all kinds of techniques to mess around the edges. But at the end of the day, the tomato plant is still essentially grown by God. And even though we might do tending, we might do things. So this is when he talks about grace, this is what he's talking about. This kind of organic operation of God's work within us to grow and to grow towards him, to be like heliotropism. You know heliotropism. So if you place a plant, you have to turn your house plants or else they all lean over because they lean towards the sun. That's called heliotropism. Well, humans, basically he's kind of pointing out like humans have within us this heliotropic mechanism. We always want to lean towards God. We have this inherent leaning towards the divine, and that there's this way in which, and that's God's operation with us. That's grace. That we're growing in this way, and that's not our work. Like we can stand in the way of it. We can, every time the tomato plant grows up, we can cut it off, but we can't. But the operation its operation is God's to do with us. So it's a whole different, this is a whole different kind of thing that's now arriving. And so it's the grace of the Lord Jesus Christ, just as they will. So
in this verse 11, really what it's saying is that this grace extends to everybody,
yes,
not just those whose names are written in the book of life.
yes,
So it's really a contrast to that idea of only those whose names are
Are the
written
chosen.
are the children.
right.
But this extends to everyone.
Yes, and is at work. It is at work with everybody. It is at work with the Yanomamo tribesman in the middle of the Amazon basin who has never heard the name Jesus or has ever been encountered by the West. But that same operation is at work with that little guy down there as it is with me. That's how broad and wide and deep the love of God is.
I dig it.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Yep.
And that's what the Jews here are being asked to kind of step into. So you can see how high a wall it is. It's actually a lower barrier for the Gentiles in a way, than it is for the Jews to say, oh, the Messiah has come, and that means the reign of God is now here, and the reign of God extends to everybody. When we say King of Kings, we mean, yes, King also of the chief, the tribal chief of the Yanomamo tribesmen in the Amazon basin. Like the Lord of all things and all, and so it is
We don't
this.
know what that grace looks like.
Right, and
That grace may not be that the king of the Amazon has to say, I believe in Jesus to
Right.
go to heaven.
Right.
It would look different.
Right, exactly. We really don't. And there's it's one of the things I like about the Orthodox is they really do have it, and I think, and I really kind of adopted it as my own, is this sense of, there's a real sense of mystery around that, like, and there's the line in the Gospels where it says, to whom much is given, much is expected. We know Jesus. We have a Bible. We have this opportunity to come into relationship with him. There's this way in which maybe something a little bit more is going to be asked of us in terms of what we know versus, like, somebody who grows up in the, and even maybe comes up through a different religion. I really do believe, like, I have a very high Christology. I really do believe all roads lead to Christ, but that doesn't mean all roads are equal by any stretch of the imagination, nor are they even necessarily all roads, quote unquote, good. But they do, in fact, honestly walked out in a desire to know the divine, that God will work with that. Because what God really wants from us is a relationship, and that there's this idea of that, we're all going to, after death, we're all going to get a lecture. We're all going to figure out how it actually works. But on the other side of that is, one of my favorite theologians has this line where, for some of you it might be controversial, so don't feel like it's got to be yours because it just happens to be mine. But he says that the jewels in the crown that sits on Christ's head are emblematic, or they're symbols of the different religions of the world. That there's this way in which that even that to live out a life of charity, to live out a life of compassion, to live out a life of hope in the best way, under the best law that you have, will in fact lead you to the face of Jesus.
You are living
And that's
Christ's way. Right?
and that's that right. It is so that Christ really becomes a qualitative thing, not a quantitative thing. You know what I mean? That the life of Christ, and so there are people that you will meet that may not have ever heard the name of Jesus, but embody the qualities of Jesus, embody the qualities of love, embody the qualities of wisdom, and that's enough for God to work with. Now that's my own take. I'm not asking anybody to take that up, and because that's not always the most orthodox, but I do think I do think we have to home it in the place of mystery, in a way of, like, there's a lot there's a right, and that when Philippians says, work out your own salvation with fear and trembling, that is really what our task is. And it's not a task to say, I wonder about those people, and that doesn't mean we shouldn't do missionary efforts. That doesn't mean, because in fact everywhere that the gospel's ever gone, the quality of life for people there have gotten better. Like, the world has gotten better for everybody that's encountered Jesus. Like, it actually is a better world at every place that's ever happened. So that's not to say, because there are still demons that run around the world, and there are still things, dysfunctional systems that need correcting. But at the same time, that's not what they're talking about here. So anyway, that's a long.
God finding Abram in Ur.
Funny you should say that. You're getting ahead. Like it says that. That's 6. Yeah. Yeah. So the thing is, that's exactly what James says in this next piece. James actually references. James says this exact same thing as we keep going. So that means that's my cue to keep going. So all of the assembly fell silent, and they listened to Barnabas and Paul. So now Barnabas and Paul weigh in, as they related what signs and wonders God had done through them among the Gentiles. So Peter has told, remember, he just referenced back to his experience with Cornelius and said, I've had this experience with the Gentiles, the holy picnic and all that we need to take the Gentiles seriously. And now, if you remember all the things Paul and Barnabas have been doing, with the Ethiopian and with all the different encounters they've had along the way with meeting these Gentiles that that were at meeting. Remember the meeting also the God-fearers, who are really built the church in a lot of ways. That they're now coming in droves into the church. So now you got these guys, and it's like, and so they give this witness of like, yeah, oh, by the way, this thing that Peter says is happening is actually happening. So they're like the footnotes to this. They're like it happened here, it happened there, it happened here, it happened here. So they're now giving a testimony to it. And they related to the signs and wonders among the Gentiles. After they finished speaking, James replied, "Brothers, listen to me." Now, a thing about James. So there's Peter and James are in Jerusalem. But James, if you look back at the scholarship, James is really considered the first bishop of Jerusalem. Like it's really James's church. Jerusalem is James's church. It's not Peter. Peter is he's on a higher level. Like he's, if James is the captain, he's kind of the commodore sort of thing. Like Peter has other bigger things than just Jerusalem that he's worrying about. But James is the pastor of the Jerusalem church. So they've all come. So basically this is like, okay, we're going to have a meeting in this church, and I'm going to have a bunch of pastors in my church or a bunch of leaders in my church, but then I'm going to stand up and say something. It's like, it's my house. I get I get to say something, and so James is swinging a big bat here. Like he's not just another apostle. He's kind of the big man on the scene. So James replied, "Brothers, listen to me. Simon has related, Simeon, talking about Peter, has related how God first visited the Gentiles to take them from a people for his name. And with this, the words of the prophets agree, just as it is written. After this I will return, and I will rebuild the tent of David that has fallen. I will rebuild its ruins, and I will restore it, that the remnant of mankind may seek the Lord, and all the Gentiles who are called by my name, says the Lord, who makes these things known from old. So therefore, my judgment is that we should not trouble those of the Gentiles who turn to God." So this passage, I think it's from Ezekiel, if I remember right. So he's going back. He's saying that that Israel, that this is exactly what God has already done in the past. He's referencing Abraham. It's like, remember, Abraham. Who is Abraham? He lived where? In Ur. Right. And where's Ur? I've been to his house. It's like, yeah, I'll give you a clue. Where have I been in the Middle East? Like, yeah, Iraq. Yeah. You can go to Abraham's house. Yeah, I've went to Abraham's house. There were two guys in a lawn chair sitting out in front of it, and they wanted $5, and you could go in and see it. Was it really Abraham's house? No, I doubt it. But it was, it's the legend had it that there were at least two guys in lawn chairs out front, so that said it was. So
It was called Persia earlier than that, right?
What's that?
It's called Persia.
Yeah. Well, Persia's on the other side of the river, so this is Babylon. Yeah, no, this is proper Babylon. Yeah. So it's actually right. You look at the ziggurat right there, like the ziggurat's right there, and it's just so it's really, so it's ancient. So he's Mesopotamian. Abraham's a Babylonian. And so what did God do? He speaks to this Babylonian and says, "Go to the promised land." Not Jewish. There's no way you can dress Abraham up and say he's Jewish. He's not Jewish in any manner, shape, or form. He comes to follow the God Yahweh. And so the foundation of the entire church comes not from the Jews, but the Father Abraham had many sons. Many sons had Father Abraham. That it comes from the Gentile thread, not from
civilization, actually.
Exactly, as does in whole civilization.
Abraham, was he Ishmael?
No,
No, that's not what I'm talking about.
way before.
Yeah.
Oh,
So yeah.
okay.
Yeah. So you have creation, Adam and Eve, the fall, Noah, and then after Noah, so the flood happens.
Yep.
Then there's this kind of awkward pause,
Yep.
and then after Noah, so this is the do-over. So no, so you have the flood comes, wipes everything out, starts back, and then goes
Before Exodus.
before.
That's-
Yeah. So this is
nothing
the
that right
it's
now.
the beginning.
Yeah.
Beginning. Like it's the So it's
And he
so
was
you.
gonna sacrifice his son.
What's
Right.
that?
That
Yes.
Abraham?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
Yes.
He's Abram, and then after that, he becomes Abraham,
Right. His name changes in
But
the
the one
yeah.
that he was gonna
Yeah.
sacrifice.
was his son, yes.
Yeah.
Right.
That's, yeah. So.
Okay.
There's lots of Abrahams, Peters, Simons.
Yeah. There's exactly yeah.
Uh,
I
Yeah.
still don't know why.
Let's not yeah. Well, and
I'm gonna get, I'm listening
Don't-
to it, I'm, like, every day I like listen to so much of it,
Yeah.
but it's not like listening to Andy.
don't and yeah, just don't go down the Joshua rabbit hole. That's the one that'll really get you because Jesus' name is really Joshua. So you got like so like yeah. So Joshua blows the trumpet and also Jesus like yeah. So I'm sorry I brought it up.
We have so much to learn.
So
Really good.
so this is so what James is pointing towards is he's saying, look, this is again what I was saying before. This is the fulfillment of the covenant and the extension and the entry into this new age where the Messiah reigns. So we've gone from an old age to a new age, and so again, speaking to most of the people he's in his church as James, the pastor of the Jerusalem church, most of them are Jews. He's speaking directly to his church as well as he's speaking to the wider audience, saying, we need to leave this, and we're not, we left this school and we're going to another school. Like we graduated from 8th grade, we're now going to high school. We are now in the age of the Messiah. We are no longer in the age of waiting for the Messiah. And if you stay in the age of waiting for the Messiah, you're no longer a part of the covenant.
You're gonna learn new math.
Right, yeah, you're gonna learn. You're gonna learn exactly. You're gonna learn new math because it's not gonna make any sense. Exactly, like you're gonna. So there's it's. So there's this element of like really pointing hard at the and you have to consider it. Like I think you have to be kind to it a little bit because this is the whole like their whole lives are built on these rules. It's like and it's not that they don't keep these rules. I mean, most of them will continue to keep kosher. They'll continue, but the sense of that's not what's required. That's not what's going to get you there. Is now the different.
But you're also asking them, they believed that they were God's chosen people.
Right.
And so you're asking them to extend
Yeah.
that.
Right.
Which is giving up.
If I have an Amex Black Card, now if everybody has an Amex Black Card, what does that mean?
Not special.
I'm not special anymore.
Boy, we are not involved at all as human beings. We are the same human beings as the angels.
Well, we're the same instincts. Like I would say they're not necessarily they're played out a little less violently, I think, at this point. But they're the same instincts for sure, 100%.
Us
Yeah,
and them.
yeah,
And
yeah.
who gets to belong and who doesn't
Yeah.
get to belong.
100%.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
unbelievable.
Who gets to belong is the faithful. It's about love, and that's how you get to belong.
But that's so distorted, right?
Why?
It's distorted here. It's distorted in our human frailties and our human flaws. That it's distorted here because the Jews are being asked to extend to others something that they have that's held as their own, and it's being stored in today's politics and today's world.
There's a thing I say about survival, and our basic instinct is to survive. So the thing I say here, we lie, cheat, steal, anything to gain advantage to survive.
Yeah.
And what I think that God is trying us to do is not to don't live Satan's way, don't look to survive, look to live by loving. So if like what Jesus said in the don't worry passage, that's don't worry about the survival stuff. That's a given. Love and all that will come to you. And you know that personally if you know that you act in a loving way with everyone, that people care about you, you are the person that people care about, because you're not a threat to anybody, and you bring positive to everybody's life. So people will come to you because of who you are, that loving person that you are.
But I think we get lost in that today.
Yes, yeah, and it's our instinct.
Are for power.
It is our instinct.
Or our own selfishness.
It's our instinct to survive, and we have to overcome that instinct to survive, reject that, and every time we get stimulated by our senses, we react.
Yeah.
And so, to me, one of the things we need to do is to train ourselves to reject that and love. And it's hard.
Of course.
Your first reaction is all, I so much, I want to smack you, but you're gonna back off and
Only
say,
when I'm on 24.
and you gotta back off, and that, you can't go by that instinct. You have to, God gave us a mind that we can react and we can think. So he gave us a reactive mind and he gave us a cogent mind. So we need to not react, we need to back off that reactive mind and think, let the cogent mind set in, and then we can do what he wants
I
us
can't
to do.
tell you how many times I apologize to God in the car. Like, I'm sorry. I know God. I literally say out loud, I know God, I'm sorry. I'm
Did I say
sorry.
that well?
This is to your
Yeah.
point, like too much is given, much is expected. Like,
Yeah.
we know this.
Right.
Right? And so we know this, and yet we still don't,
Oh, it's tough.
in action.
It's tough. I found myself doing that badly because I saw my wife a couple of days ago and I asked her to talk to me and she ran away and I said some bad things to her as she was going away. And then I said to her, why did you get angry? Why did you let yourself get frustrated anyway? And so
Constant
it happens.
exercise.
It happens. Damn it, Wayne, why'd you do that?
Right,
You know, because that's not the way I feel.
right.
It's like the frustration of, it's like just, kind of stuff. So I mean,
Our human instincts.
so
are-
what I'm saying is, we're constantly stimulated to act, to react, to that's what comes off our senses, and to train ourselves. But we need to use our cogent brains, and I get caught in it the other day. I know I didn't. I admitted that. We do that.
Yeah.
Right, and so that's one thing I work on, I pray about,
Yeah.
Take away
That's
anger
the-
from
yeah.
me, because
Yeah, and therein lies I mean, that's
Did I
the
say it
whole, but that's our whole, like, I mean, that's really when you think about, like, the idea of confession itself and the idea of the reception of grace, and, like, we admit it to God, we admit it to ourselves, and we admit it to another human being, and that we do that not because we need to be absolved, but we need to come back and place ourselves back in that receptive place where we can receive grace. That it's as you say, it's us that leaps into the reactivity, and then it's like when you're like, okay, minute to myself, minute to God, minute to somebody else, like, okay, come back to the state in which we can then receive, and back to that kind of higher rational, if you want to call it that, like whatever, yeah, like it's that's the work. Like that's it. That's just the work. It doesn't, and we want it, like, and the real failing there is thinking that our failures do in fact keep us from the throne of God. Like that's the real trap, because it's always an opportunity to rely on grace. If we screw it up, it's like, oh, well, I clearly should not be in charge of this thing. You should be in charge of this thing. But if we get it right, we should say, thank you for permitting. Thank you for, watching over me in this time. That every opportunity is this opportunity to rely deeper on grace and to lean into that, and that it's when we identify ourselves with that, like, with that, animalism, if you want to call it that, or with that impulse, that's when we call it our own, that's when it gets dangerous. You know what I mean? That's when it gets dangerous, because then we wall ourselves off from the very grace that's trying to be bestowed upon us.
requires humility.
Yeah, I mean, that's at the core, exactly. That's the core of it.
I think love comes from God, love is God's essence, I think. That's who he is.
All right. So, therefore, says James, my judgment is that we should not trouble those of the Gentiles who turn to God, but should write to them to abstain from the things polluted by idols, from sexual immorality, from that which is being strangled, and from blood. For from ancient generations Moses has had in every city those who proclaim him, and for he is read every Sabbath in the synagogue. So James is saying, like, and if you've ever read the book of James, you'd know that he's kind of big on doing things, but he's saying, like, look, there's a few things we shouldn't, that are going to keep you from, that are going to keep us from, and they're all around participating in the pagan worldview. So he's saying you don't have to go through the law, but you do have to not participate with the pagans. Like, you do have to not do that. So when so the things he's talking about here, so he says things that are polluted by idols. So we're talking about, so kind of visiting the temple prostitutes, that's really bad. Making blood sacrifices, that's like, you can't, the practice of magic, that's what we're talking about. He's talking about, like, trying to get a spirit to do something, to cast a love potion, do something like that. He's talking about the things that have been strangled, because things that have been and from blood. So it's this engagement in the not ritual purity around the Jewish law, but the not participating in the things that will actually draw you into uncleanness. Does that make sense? Because it's not about, like, oh, you have to do the hokey pokey, but it's just like, okay,
Avoid temptation.
yeah, and avoid, and not just avoid temptation, but I mean, these aren't necessarily things that people are tempted to do. These are things people are consciously going out and, like, I'm gonna go do that, like, yeah, like, you don't just like, oh, the temple looks fun today. Like, you just, like, there's a way in which they're actively participating in
Was there a part of pagan god worship in those days?
Oh yeah, I mean, that's all there is. That's
pagan god worship.
That's pretty much. Say it again.
Stay away from the pagan god worship stuff.
Right.
Stick with
Right.
the stuff we've been talking.
Right. So, yeah. I mean, we can go into more of what we think that looks like, but it's just know it's bad. It's really, really bad. Like, it's.
Those things had meaning to them at the
Yeah.
time.
So there's, like, we can't. I mean, 21st century humans can't really conceive of what the pagan world looked like and what particularly pagan cult worship looked like. I mean, there would always be, like, pretty much every temple would probably have some sort of orgy going on in it at some point or another. Like, that would be a component of it. There would be all manner of blood sacrifice, animal, maybe human, but the Romans didn't really do human stuff. They were against that. That was like, that's just creepy. But there's plenty of animal sacrifice. There's all kinds of different levels of abusive, what we would call abusive today, on any level that we can think of. It's just, when you enter into that, it's really hard to have a relationship with God or another human being, because what the pagan worldview does, and what worshiping a pagan god does, is it basically commoditizes the human experience. Or it makes a commodity out of something. Like, okay, I'm going to make these sacrifices, and I'm going to get this God to do this thing for me. I'm going to bargain with, and not just in a please Lord get me out of this and I'll be better, but in a real I'm going to seek out a power that isn't God, that isn't Yahweh, that isn't Jesus. I'm going to seek out a power that isn't Jesus to get them to do my bidding. This is. So do you see the difference? It's actually it's working counter to a relationship with Jesus. Does that make more sense?
That blows my mind that that's a thing.
What's that?
That there are like other gods or whatever.
Yeah.
That I never knew that until you said that when we were talking about Exodus and.
Oh yeah, yeah. And
Ramses was considered a god.
I mean there are now
Blew my mind. That
yeah.
blew my mind,
Yeah.
You
just got-
Yeah, like Zeus and.
all that's the absolute pagan gods, and the Roman gods
Yeah.
are the same different name as the Greeks had.
Yeah, I mean, we've all kind of
Myths, like mythology.
right. We call it mythology. We've we've neutered a lot of that.
Yeah.
But the idea of no, those are actual. They were actual agents that had power. That actually, and you can say, well, they were real. I mean, these are really the kind of the masks of the principalities that we encounter even today. Like this is why you can say there's really nothing new, is because the same principalities are still at work. Like the idea of, I mean, Moloch is Moloch, for instance. Moloch is kind of the machine god. It is kind of the one who calls us to sacrifice. Will give you things, will give you technologies if you make sacrifices to it. Does that sound familiar to anything that we have in this world today? Like, how long do I stare at my phone? And what will it give me? It will give me little dopamine hits, right? Like if I stare at my phone and scroll, it will give me little dopamine hits. I'll feel better about me. Like if eventually I'll feel worse about me. But, it will, these patterns, have, they're just as alive and just as real as they were then. Except for then, they've been in our world, they've been really curated back because of the presence of 2,000 years of Christianity. Like they were on full, it was on full display in that era. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Is that okay?
yeah.
I don't feel like I'm doing a good job with that,
That was it.
but yeah. So James, again, he's not making the case for we need to keep the law. He's saying there should be things that we don't do. It's because if we get caught up in them, it's going to be really hard to have a relationship with Jesus. And then it seemed good to the apostles and the elders. So, all right, everybody seems to be, we seem to be coming to some agreement here. And then it seems good that the apostles and the elders with the whole church to choose men from among them and send them to Antioch with Paul and Barnabas. And they sent Judas, called Barsabbas, and Silas, leading men among the brothers, and with the following letter. The brothers, both the apostles and the elders to the brothers, who are of the Gentiles in Antioch and Syria and Cilicia, greetings. Since we have heard that some persons have gone out from us and troubled you with words unsettling your minds, although we gave them no instructions. So there are people out there creating dissent in the church. I know that's never happened before. It doesn't happen now. It has seemed good to us, having come to one accord, to choose men and send them to you with our beloved Barnabas and Paul, men who have risked their lives for the name of the Lord Jesus Christ. We have therefore sent Judas and Silas, who themselves will tell you the same things by word of mouth, and for it seems good to the Holy Spirit, to us, to lay on you no greater burden than these requirements, that you abstain from what has been sacrificed to idols, from blood, and from what has been strangled, and from sexual immorality. If you keep yourselves from these, you will do well. Goodbye. Farewell. So farewell is kind of a blessing. So so these guys get drafted to go out with this letter. They've got an agreement. They put it in writing. They're going to send these guys out, and so. But note again, not to overstate it, but stay away from the sacrifice of idols. Stay away from blood. Stay away from what was strangled, and stay away from sexual immorality. So strangled because of breath. So that spirit, ruah, we call it the spirit. So you can't take breath and you can't take blood, because those are the two things. Those are of God. They're not of humanity. So when you start trafficking in those things, you are placing yourself in the role of God. So you don't traffic in blood and you don't traffic in breath. You don't have relationships with gods outside of you. Like you don't traffic in idols and sexual immorality. So the line sexual immorality is not, don't flirt with the cashier at Starbucks. That's not what that means. It means do not visit the temple prostitutes, essentially, is what it means. So, have I explained this before? So there's the temples were always raised, and then, and there are arches underneath generally, and then there's a platform, and then on that's the building. Like if you've been to Greece or anywhere, you've kind of seen this, and it's actually all over Europe. Like you'll see this. There are ones and I saw ones in England. Like it's the same. So there's this, and so now at the bottom, so you'd go and make your sacrifices. But in order, when you go in the front door, make your sacrifices to the idol, and then you go out the back door. And in order to get it to take, and this is all part of, this is deep, deep, deep in the Bible. It's this is how you make demons. This is how you make. So the highest magic is sex magic, and so how you make things happen is you do it with a prostitute. Okay, sex with a prostitute was a part of the ritual act because it was basically like putting, I'm trying not to be gross. Like it's it's like I know, but it's I'm just trying to it's putting real human involvement into this sacrifice that you just made. So it's like
spilling your own kind of
yes.
Juices.
Yes, exactly. Because from that comes life, right? And so if you want to give life to an entity, if you want to create a golem, an egregore, if you want to get something to happen, it is through that mechanism. And the prostitute is just the way to kind of the technology to get you there. So so there's really what there's going on is there's the temple prostitute, there is the person giving the sacrifice, and then there's the God. So it's actually a three-way is what's actually happening in this. I know I'm sorry to get into that, but it's deep in Bible. You find in the Bible. It's coded, but this is how demons get made. Okay, this is how you make a giant. This is how you make them. And they were the last time and there's an actual ritual around it. And the last time this ritual was actually performed that we know of, I'm gonna take a guess. What century? I mean that we formally know of. We formally know of was in the 1980s. With the Emperor of Japan, like every time, and this would happen with every emperor in everywhere. You would have the ritual prostitute. You would have the kind of the ritual bed and all the sacrifices that go with it, and then you would have they would enter in, and that created another entity, which was going to be the spirit that reigned over it. It was a way of creating.
1980.
Yeah, in the 1980s. Like this is not like we like to think this stuff is, and I mean it. But the thing is in occult practices, this stuff is still going on. Like this, like we know sex magic is still going on and stuff like that. So I go deep into that just to say there's a lot of people who will tell you what sexual immorality is when we read this, but what they're very particular. Like, this is a very particular description lined up with the pagan practices. That is, you're not gonna accidentally fall into this. You know what I mean? Like, you're not, like, we think, like, we're given the, like, you need to be pure in thought, word, and deed thing or whatever. Like, it's like, that's not what this is saying. This is not saying about whether
A perverted procreation?
yes, exactly. That's exactly what it is. It's exactly what it is. It's an inversion. It's an inversion of procreation. That's exactly right.
See, like, they're making satanic procreation.
Yes, exactly. Like, that's what.
What's really interesting is how fornication has been so used and distorted.
Right. Yeah.
And how people have.
I think that's what about.
Well, it's
our basic instinct.
it's the
is
most-
to
yeah.
procreate. That's
But-
probably the most enjoyable thing that we do.
but it's the most right. It's the most powerful thing.
Yeah.
Like, it.
Right.
Right. Look at a billboard. Like, look at advertising. Look at what happens. Look at the creation of life. Like, it is the most base and the most powerful of things. And it can either serve life or it can serve death. But it can't be. I mean, it literally. It's like, it's not. You don't get to. It's not. You can't. It can't be ambivalent. You know what I mean? Like things of great power. Like, you take a 45 caliber handgun. What you point it at is going to receive great power. Now, you can point it at a target, and you can point it at an animal and get a meal. You can point it at or you can point it at another human being and do great damage. But it's a thing of great power, and that's why it's always like the pagans were really big on, I mean, best example. So remember Charlton Heston comes down in Ten Commandments, comes down off the mountain. He's got the Ten Commandments. He sees the golden calf, and everybody, all the people are partying, right? They're like having a good, like, that's what they were really doing. Like, it looks like a Sharks and Jets dance party, like in the movie, but like, no. What's actually when it says, yeah, oh yeah, 100%. Like, that's yeah, yeah. Like, it's everybody. It's everybody. It's old people, young people, old kids, like everybody. Okay, I mean, I don't mean to be gratuitous, but you have to kind of conceive of the lines as we understand. Right, exactly. Like, and real debauchery and a real like that's what. So Moses comes down. He's like, I leave you alone for 20 minutes. Like,
Only 40 days is nice. That's all. It was only 40 days is nice. So it's destructive. It's destructive to the family and to culture. And
Right.
it's the first step in
right.
destroying everything.
Well, it's destructive to everything. Like, it's destructive to every relationship you could ever possibly have. It's destructive because what it does is, this is where I was trying to get to before, is it commoditizes people, right? Like, this person, that person becomes a commodity, or that it becomes the inverse of everything that's good, true, and beautiful, and it uses that power for destruction, for destructive ends, so that it uses it so that you can gain power in the world. I want this thing. I want to be rich, so I'm going to go make this sacrifice, and I'm going to go visit the temple prostitute. I want this person to do my bidding, so I'm going to make the sacrifice. So I tell you all that just to say, not, because a lot of this sometimes over the years has been used as this idea of don't look at the pretty girl, or don't, and I'm not saying follow all those instincts or anything like that, but I'm saying this, what James is counseling and what the early church is counseling is not this radical, purity model. They're saying don't participate in evil things. That's what they're really saying here. So I wanted to lay all that out because I think it's important for us, it's important to see that they're not, because what I think particularly the Protestant church in some ways has done is, created, they kind of traded in one purity standard for another purity standard in a way, and it's like, it's not to say we shouldn't work towards purity. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying it's like, but the first thing of it is stay in relationship with Jesus and don't do really evil stuff. Don't participate with the demons. Like that's what they're really saying. And so, we can load ourselves up morally and feel like, oh, I'm horrible. I can't do this or I can't do that, or I can't stop obsessing about this thing or that thing or what, there's a lot of moralism, I think, that's been loaded around that. And I wanted to kind of go back to kind of the beginning.
He's not just saying don't check out that pretty girl walking down on the cobblestone.
Right.
He's saying like this is like, it's like, and that's how some people might, sexual immorality.
Exactly.
Such a broad
Right. And
term, so now
yes.
today.
Right.
So this is basically saying, no, it's sex to create evil.
Yeah,
That's
right,
what he's saying.
right. Don't go participating in that, and that's not to say maybe checking out the pretty girl isn't the best thing that you should be doing. Like maybe it's not going to take you a good place if you do it, but that's not what we're talking about here. Like, see what I'm saying? Like,
the more relationship you're with Christ, those things fall away.
right,
Yeah.
Exactly. Like that's the whole thing. Is if we,
You don't even realize
and
it.
if you stop participating in evil things,
Yeah.
there's that natural heliotropism, that natural desire to move towards Christ, like that the growth of grace within us will in fact take us there. Like it really is the story of grace
Yeah.
in this
Well,
sense. So
when I am sensitive to that word fornication. My oldest son is gay, and so I feel like that word has been distorted by a lot of the Christian churches in making gay people other
Mhm.
and making them evil, and
Yeah.
portraying them as evil. And I have such a reaction to that, and it's like that's the distorted word of how. That's not what the Bible means. And as I'm hearing you, that's
Mhm.
not what you're talking about.
that
You're talking about something very different.
Right.
But how easy it is to distort and use the Bible to create
Right.
dissension.
Oh, that's going
Yeah.
and
on.
love
Right.
everywhere.
and there is
Exactly.
and there is gay sex that is not helpful to the redemptive life. And there's heterosexual sex that is not redemptive that is not helpful to the heavenly life. Like, I mean, both of, but those are not what we're talking about here.
Right.
Exactly. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
So, yep.
Yeah.
All right. We're at
Well, I'm not
time.
having any sex, so there we go.